Welcome to the Grap Up, January 2024. Your monthly blast of cold takes on the world of professional wrestling. Available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I am the intrepid traveler, Mark Robinson. With me, he is the editor over at the Wrestling Observer. He is Brian Rose. Brian, so what do you want to talk about?
Where to start? There's so much that went on in January. I mean, you would think that maybe the biggest news story this year would be the TV rights deal, since like everybody's forgotten about that already. Like it would be big enough that the news is that Raw is going to Netflix starting next year. You think that would be like a big story, and largely it's been forgotten about because of everything else that's gone on in the last 4 weeks. It's simply insane, really.
Yep. I feel like we should probably do the Vince stuff first.
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, we could probably go for 90 minutes on Vince alone, but we'll try and somehow keep this kind of concise. Now, a lot of this does bleed over into February, technically, but I think it's worth kind of just getting into the weeds of this now. So basically, Vince McMahon, 23rd of January, he's up there, New York Stock Exchange, having a kind of a little song and dance with TKO about the announcement of their the whole thing with Netflix and signing. What was I don't remember the exact numbers.
I forget as well, but I think it was like 5 billion.
5 billion, yeah, 5 billion deal for Netflix.
Yes.
With Raw going to Netflix in the US and most of their other live programming, as those contracts will end, those deals will end up on Netflix around the world. Which, when you kind of look into the weeds of it, there are things about it that are obviously a success. There are things about it that you might think that the deal isn't as attractive as you first think. That's a whole nother conversation that we can get to. But then a couple of days later, it came out. What was it? Yeah,
Wall Street
I think it was the
Journal, I
26th,
think.
January 26th. Wait, 2025. I don't remember the exact date exactly, but yeah, the Wall Street Journal. It came out that a lawsuit from a former WWE employee, Janelle Grant, who accused McMahon of sex trafficking and battery. While the claims of McMahon's hush money payments and accusations of misconduct were previously known, this, like 67-page report, I think.
It was something like that.
Went into...
we didn't know the details.
Yeah,
and the details are very graphic.
Specifics. Yes.
Yeah.
Which maybe Triple H has read by now. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
Still have no confirmation. McMahon kind of, doubled down, said that all of the information in there was false, and then he refuted it. Within that lawsuit, because the lawsuit isn't just against Vince McMahon, it's also against John Laurinaitis and the company of WWE as a whole, due to unnamed executives and what they did or didn't know, and the kind of speculation that's gone into that as well. We now have John Laurinaitis trying to save his own backside by, throwing Vince and
he's
anyone
throwing
else
Vince under the bus.
Oh yeah. Which, the one thing of that, because and I haven't seen anyone try to play the whole, like, I guess people are just now guilty before proven innocent card. I think that it really should be pretty clear that, significant portions of this lawsuit and the details within that lawsuit are true. And
there's text messages.
Yeah. So not too long after that, unsurprisingly, TKO went, well, this isn't good. We should probably shit can Vince McMahon. And he is, as far removed from WWE as he has ever been. And because of, the kind of like the power struggle that is within that company, I think it's fair to say he's not coming back, but also, hey, You can never say never with Vince.
I cannot see a scenario where he would be brought back. But then again, you cannot completely dismiss it because of everything that's happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when he retired, quote unquote, you thought, well, that would be it. But then he forced himself back in, and then everybody acted like, oh, well, he was always going to come back. Things like that. So it's, yeah, I mean, the allegations here are terrible, very graphic in detail, very gross. It's enough to where you would think that they would never let him back in, but you never know because it's the world is very strange. It's very weird, especially this world, and you just can't dismiss the idea that he'd be brought back.
And also something that I overlooked there, a significant reason, and maybe the whole reason for Vince's removal, was Slim Jim. Before, Slim Jim, one of the prominent sponsors of the Royal Rumble, said they were. I'm trying to remember their exact phrasing. They weren't saying that they were completely pulling out of their
Like
agreement, suspending their arrangement with the WWE, which is all right, whatever. And so, as with anything, unfortunately, when it comes to the kind of corporate business side of anything, money talks. And if none of the corporate sponsors had decided they were going to start pulling out of arrangements, maybe we wouldn't be in the position we are right now. It would have been very interesting if this lawsuit had come out a week or two prior, considering everything with the Netflix deal and what that could have looked like. But here we are. Here we are at this point in time. It's been interesting in that it's been fairly quiet over the last week or so. I feel like in some ways this might be the kind of calm before the storm, because I think the significant thing with this, and anytime it comes to victims of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, anything in that area, a large part of what this is about empowering other people who are, in this very unfortunate circle that are all tied to this abuser. And so the hope, and from what I've listened to certain outlets and whatnot, is that Janelle Grant has been getting phone calls. Her lawyer has been getting phone calls from other people that have been a victim, whether from Vince directly or within the kind of systematic issues that has been WWE/WWF for the past 30, 40 years. And we've got people like Ashley Massaro's former lawyer coming out and kind of bringing up the issues around that, and the fact that the company actually was aware of allegations that were made, that she had made. And yeah, it really feels like we whatever was underneath the woodwork, we have now just ripped that open, and I imagine the next couple of months is going to be a real stormy ride. And I would imagine, the person who's probably sweating more than anyone else at the moment, because here's the thing with Vince. Unfortunately, he has the right amount of money and is the right amount of age that he can ride this out till, the Grim Reaper comes calling for him.
Yeah.
I think the person more than anyone else that's going to be sweating the most over the next couple of months is Triple H. But hey, where are you at? What do you think of this? How has this been for you in terms of the Wrestling Observer, obviously, and just this is the biggest story that could come around, and just what's it been like for you for the last couple of weeks?
Well, it kind of feels like deja vu in a way, because we all kind of experienced this in 2022 when Vince McMahon first retired. We just didn't know the details of what was in those NDAs. And now we have at least details on one of those NDAs, and one of those people are speaking out. And it's graphic, it's gross, it's enough to where you think, well, shouldn't she try and get him arrested for rape? Because that's basically what happened in what's be detailed in these reports. And I don't know how the laws and all that are going to work out, but it's enough to where, I mean, he should be in jail for what he did. I mean, that's plainly and clearly evident based on everything that's been said in this lawsuit. The texts alone are graphic and should warrant him being gone from TKO. I think this is just the beginning of a story. Like, it starts with Vince McMahon and what he did, and not only is it going to go across all of these employees who kind of like created this culture of, well, nobody's going to question Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon thinks he's Teflon. We should look the other way while he does these things. That's probably the mentality of a lot of people. And for Triple H to go into that press conference and say, "Well, we had no idea. We're just finding out about this." I don't buy that. John Laurinaitis himself has uh, lent credence to the fact that all these allegations might be true, because he's throwing Vince McMahon under the bus. And just yesterday or the other day, his attorney is going, "Well, everybody in WWE knew about the Oscar Massaro allegations, and so you have at least a 20-year history of these kind of things happening to women in WWE, and they are looking the other way." And I feel like this is just the start of a long story evolving WWE's culture of looking the other way when it comes to how women are treated in that promotion. Both employees and wrestlers and managers and all the like. It seems like it's a problem to the very top of the company. And yes, you could get rid of Vince McMahon, but there's still so many other people there who might have done something or at least knew of something happening, and they look the other way. There seems to be a clear cut history to all that. So obviously, it needs to be investigated. There needs to be a top to bottom investigation of the kind of culture that WWE has been fostering there for so long. And there's just going to be more stories coming out. Like, WWE is hoping that this all goes under the rug, but there's a federal investigation on Vince McMahon. And that could lead to him being arrested and charged with who knows what, because they raided his home, I think, last year. And they took his cell phones. And they took his all his personal information. So obviously there's an investigation there. And there's more women who haven't come forward and talked about their experiences. And like, this is just one story. And I feel like there's going to be more stories coming out that may be even worse than this. Who knows? So yeah, it's the start of a story that I think is going to evolve into a bigger story as time goes on. There might be jail time involved. There might be other people named. It's on one side, it's going to be a very successful year for WWE because of WrestleMania, and their business is incredible right now. But it's also going to be a pretty crappy year for them because they are going to have to go through a lot. And a lot of people are going to be named, probably. Either they did something or they looked the other way while it was happening. And it's going to be very interesting to see what develops through the next year. I don't think this is the end of the story. Like, maybe right now, like you said, this is the calm before the storm. But I don't think this is the end of the story at all. I think we're just getting to the start of stuff coming out in this company and what's been going on, dating back to what seems like. I mean, there are allegations about Vince McMahon dating back to the '80s with Rita Chatterton. So there's always going to be stories. There's always going to be allegations. There's going to be more stuff that's going to come out, and the culture that's been around this company for so long, it's going to be made more clear.
And I think as well, something to really consider with all of this, so many times when a lawsuit like this gets filed, a lot of times, for whatever reason, it ends up getting settled out of court. And it's a case of, like, let's throw as much money as we need to at this thing to make it go away. And certainly from the tone of Grant's lawyer, it very much does seem to be a case of this isn't a thing about like getting as much money out of this as possible. It does very much feel like there is a company wide level of just failure to protect employees and independent contractors and whatnot. And it definitely seems like they are all in, full throated to expose this as much as possible. And so obviously, the thing is like, if it gets to the point of discovery, that's when shit gets real interesting.
Oh yeah.
And I would like it to get to that point, if for no other reason than to really get to the weeds of not just Vince, because there are people who are more than happy to put this down to all right, well, Vince is the issue here. He's gone. We can all now kind of go back to our merry lives. And it's like, that's clearly like, you don't have to read the whole report. There are plenty of places out there that have done a summarization of what is in there, because it's I haven't read all of it, but the few bits that I did go through, it doesn't make for pleasant reading, funnily enough.
I have read the entire report, lawsuit, whatever, and it definitely details a story of a man who took a woman who was very vulnerable. She had just lost her job, and she was looking for work, and he took her in and immediately began giving her attention. And it was a story of him displaying power the minute that she thought, well, maybe I don't want to do this. He very much detailed very many places where he said, I have powerful lawyers that make things go away. Things like that. He demonstrated power against her in many situations where she didn't want to do something, and he demonstrated his power constantly. And um, it's a very it sounds so much like Vince McMahon, in where he very much likes to display his power over other people. And we've seen this kind of on TV, where the heel Mr. McMahon made Trish Stratus bark like a dog, where the heel Vince McMahon made people kiss his butt, his full butt on displaying on TV. We've seen him flaunt this kind of power, well, I'm untouchable, on TV, and as it turns out, he's doing the same thing off TV. The Vince McMahon character on TV seems so much like the real Vince McMahon. Actually, maybe maybe even worse than the Vince McMahon character we see on TV. No, actually, it is, based on everything we've learned over the last few weeks. It's someone who very clearly thinks he's untouchable, and he gets to treat people like this. And it's becoming clear now that no, you're not untouchable. At least this is what people are trying to do. I mean, a few years ago, he got fired. Well, he wasn't fired, but he resigned because these NDAs came out. And we thought, well, Vince McMahon finally got what was coming to him. And then, no, he came back to power. And this time, once again, we're thinking, well, maybe this time he's, whatever. But yeah, it's very much a power play that he's doing. He thinks he's untouchable, and that's why he gets to do this to other people, because, he had a big amount of lawyers that could make things go away. And now he doesn't have that. And now stuff is coming out, and maybe it's, he's finally getting what's coming to him.
And I also think that, there will be a lot of fans of WWE who won't really have much investment or attachment to this, because so much of it is behind the scenes and involves people that weren't in front of the camera. And whether it be a case of discovery, or whether it be a case of former or current performers who have been in whatever the situation may be that made them feel uncomfortable with Vince or whoever else, those people exist. Using Ashley Mazzaro as the first example, I would be fairly confident that There's more than just her.
Oh yeah.
And I think that as this snowball keeps rolling, and hopefully as people feel more emboldened to come out and share their stories, the moment where you have like former or current talent, I'd say probably more likely former talent, talk about their experiences, that even to the most casual, flippant WWE fan who doesn't pay attention to kind of online media and publications, that kind of stuff, really just watches the product and that's it. Even they, they can't escape this, they can't avoid this, and that's good. Like, everyone from the fucking top to the bottom should be made to know about what has happened. And everyone that was involved that has been affected or impacted should have that platform now to share their experiences without fear of persecution or whatever the case may be. So, I'm sure this is something that's going to come up over the next couple of months. The way that the track record of the way things have been, not just with WWE but AEW, prior to the World's End pay-per-view, I can see, 2 days before WrestleMania, shit's gonna go crazy, and we're gonna get, whatever new reports and whatnot. So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, this is a situation where, Vince McMahon, even at the end, was using terms like WWE superstars and WWE universe. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, for so long, he's created this own little universe where he can't be touched and he's untouchable. And, this is the real world. This is the WWE where everything's happy and fine and everything's going great. And uh, we use terms like superstar and universe and phrases that you never hear in real life conversation. But if you watch WWE TV, it's all over the place where people are talking like aliens about things that you would never hear a normal person talk about. And it's like, for once, the WWE universe is touching into reality, and Vince McMahon is getting a cold dose of reality that no, he's not untouchable. That things are going to come out over the next few months that could be just as graphic as what was in that lawsuit, and I it's not going to look good. It's just going to be really bad. It's going to be a really bad situation for Vince. It's going to be a really bad situation for the WWE, and we could see a lot of heads roll by the end of the year based on what else comes out.
for sure, yeah. So that's that for now. I spoke about it earlier on during this, but before we talk about the Royal Rumble, the Royal Rumble presser, which was
Oh boy.
probably the most interesting and most kind of sought after presser, certainly on WWE side ever.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, and I'm still trying to figure this out. Did TKO just put Triple H out there like to kind of
I
take
think
all the
they did.
bullets? Did he just go in there genuinely like flummoxed and unprepared for what was coming? Because above
And
everything else, like, I thought, if nothing else, we were going to start. He was going to sit down and he was going to have, maybe just
at
a
least,
single A4 piece of
yeah.
paper and give whatever fucking, like, spiel about, we're aware of the current things. These are our comments, and this is as much as we can say right now. Because at that point there, whatever any question anyone asks for the next 20 minutes, you can just refer them to the fucking thing and get on with your
Yes.
life. And I'm just like, what the hell are you doing? Getting up there
I,
and saying, "Oh, I've not actually read the report yet," and, "Oh, we're as
I
surprised as
cannot,
you are,"
yeah.
and I just don't know how anyone could have allowed that to happen.
I have no idea. And you would think a company like TKO would prepare Triple H for something like this because they had like 2 days to prepare for this. Or they could have just not done a press conference because it's not like WWE is known for their press conferences. It's astonishing. Not only did Triple H completely fail on that question. I'm stunned that he wasn't prepared. I'm surprised that he didn't at least have like some sort of written statement before he started talking, because you knew someone was going to ask about this. I mean, even though the first question wasn't about the stuff, it's like somebody was going to ask this, and Triple H's response was like as if he thought that nobody was going to ask it, when that which unless he just fills that audience with pro WWE people, um, that wasn't going to happen. And his response was so bad. Like and it basically was I want to focus on the positives of the week, and it's like Vince McMahon resigned over really graphic and bad details that were in a lawsuit, and you want to focus on the good things, like the biggest story that's ever happened in the last 40 years of pro wrestling, and you're just going to say, well, I want to think about the positives. Like Cody has such a much better response to that, just minutes before Triple H started talking. And it's like he's more of a professional than Triple H is based on what he's saying.
I mean, I don't know if it's that or it's more just he has his finger more on the pulse and is aware of what's going on around him, and is just able to, because Cody has been very smart now for some time,
he's a
and
very smart guy.
You can even look to the whole thing on SmackDown last week with him, The Rock, and Roman Reigns, and about how to, like wrestling at its purest form is about manipulation of the audience, and that can come in many, many different forms. And not to say that he was manipulating the journalists and the people asking the questions to him, but he understands the game and how to play it.
Yes.
Ironically, in a way that Uncle Paul just, I don't know. You would have thought with his position, he had at least some modicum of training in like PR training and what to do in situations like this. And again, just had someone, a lawyer or someone, to say, here's the statement, say that, don't fucking like deviate from this at all. But no, we got what we got instead. And one of the big things going forward is for Elimination Chamber, because I can't imagine that is going to have the same journalists and publications that you would get stateside. So I'll be curious to see what that looks like in terms of who asked the questions. But obviously for WrestleMania and for the next couple of months, like, fingers crossed, because one of the big things obviously going into this presser as well is the types of questions that were asked, or the types of journalists and social media influencers and blah 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 at these pressers. They're as a softball as you can get in terms of the questions. So God bless John Albert, God bless Brandon Thurston, God bless, I think it was Seahawk, to actually ask something along the lines of genuine fucking questions about this whole situation.
Not about let's get to a nicer question. Not about will you face Taylor Swift? I mean, like the problem with the kind of media that WWE wants is that they want those type of people who don't want to rock the boat. They want to ask very softball questions.
Hey,
they
Brian,
want to hear about
that isn't just WWE. Like, you look at like,
I know
it's
AEW.
Well, no, but I'm just talking not even just in wrestling. You look at like the games industry. Companies are much more in favor of having insert influencer here to give their kind of reactionary takes than having an actual gaming publication give actual genuine criticism. So it's not just WWE, and you're right, AEW as well. But I guess on the flip side of that, for whatever it's worth, and it's not worth much, at least they actually did the fucking presser. And because hey, you could very easily see a situation where you either A, you don't do the presser, or B, you vet those questions beforehand, which you would think is something that would be very much possible. But I think it was Brandon Thurston who did say that, hey, look, because he's done a bunch of these now, he's usually the only person that asks any way remotely interesting fucking question at these things. And he put it out there. He's like, look, I've never been vetted. We've never been told like you can't ask that question, anything like that. So at least it did kind of peel back the curtain a little bit there to the point of like, all right, these are genuine pressers. These are people given the opportunity to ask genuine questions. Just up until this point, no one actually wanted to ask any besides Brandon
I
Thurston.
I can tell you about these press conferences. AEWs are not vetted. Like anybody can, if you are media, you can go in and do the press conferences once they begin. There's no problem.
Unfortunately, that also counts for people like CM Punk as well. But here we are.
Yeah, but for WWE, I got into WrestleMania last year, but I was not invited to the press conference. That press conference is for WWE. I think for the most part, you have to be invited to do those. So, and they do kind of vet, I guess. I don't know if they've uninvited people before. I don't think so, based on Brandon Thurston's been in many of them, and so has Nick Houseman and others who ask not so much softball questions as others do. So they are very different. But WWE knows who they are inviting into those press conferences and who they don't want in. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Yeah. Look, and again, this goes across industries. I'm sure it's not exactly difficult to not invite certain people that you don't want any time for. But you're still expecting there's going to be at least one person in the room who's going to be able to ask a genuine question. So that is something I'm very much curious for, like the next couple of events to see. Now that we had an event like the Rumble, and we saw it with the NXT Takeover, Shawn Michaels was fucking grilled for half an hour.
Oh yeah, and he still did better than Triple H.
Yeah, for sure. Or at least it came across as someone who was expecting the types of questions, and I wasn't expecting stuff like fucking stuff between him and Brutus Barber, the beefcake, to come up. Like
I don't even know what that story is.
Oh,
I guess Brutus Beefcake said something.
He said something
about him and Marty.
Yeah, or some sort of accusation. I mean, there was stuff going around about like him and in the 90s and potential like sexual harassment, abuse allegations, and Shawn was basically like, look, I was a bit of a fucking prick in the 90s. I'll be the first to admit it. But anything that happened between me and anyone else was consensual. That was Shawn's like just kind of flat out like, look, yeah, I'm no angel, but I never assaulted anyone. So hey, we'll see what happens. I doubt he's executive number 4. But look, there are many cans that we're going to be opened.
If we want to guess who that executive is, I mean, we just talked about him.
I mean,
that's the allegations anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, the Royal Rumble itself. I mean, to be quite honest, everything we've spoken about for the last 20 minutes, including the presser, I found to be more interesting than this Royal Rumble. This was
not much of a show.
Probably, and it's like the Triple H era of WWE pay-per-views. The one thing that has been interesting about them, and that I'm not really going to complain about, is they've been very condensed shows. A lot of the cards you look at, and there's like 5 matches, 6 matches.
Yeah, there's only 4 matches for this show.
Yeah, and obviously the Rumble is always a shorter looking card at least. But also like no pre-show or anything like that. Super interesting. And it's good. It's good that like they're shorter shows, because this one in particular was a fucking boring ass show.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been a fan of the edition of the Women's Rumble, not because of it's a Women's Rumble, but just doing 2 Royal Rumbles on one show.
Seems like a lot.
It is. Even if you get like 2 pretty decent Rumbles, and I feel like the 2020 Rumble was pretty good, because like both the men's and the women's I think was pretty decent. Yeah. But it's just a bit of a slog, and I don't know what the I'm sure there isn't anything that they will do about it, but it really kind of was compounded by the fact that both of these rumbles were spectacularly fucking boring, and also
Yeah.
sandwiched between two pretty boring matches in the middle as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. The two matches were not that interesting. I liked the United States title match until the finish, which was really awful. And I can't even remember off the top of my head what the other match was, which probably tells you
It was the
my
Fatal Four
thought.
Way.
Okay, okay, yeah, the Fatal 4-Way for the WWE title. Yeah, I forgotten about it because nobody thought anybody was going to beat Roman.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you just had a long match where Roman did his Shakespearean dialogue where he beat up people for a long time, and then now there's a time where everybody got near fall, nobody bought it, and yeah, I mean, just was a match and nothing beyond that. And same for the U.S. title match, and the two Rumble matches. I want to get into something about the music in WWE. I don't know if we've talked about this before.
Oh, I'm more than happy to talk about Def Rebel for
Def
fucking
Rebel
10
Rebel,
minutes.
they are fucking awful.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, they are.
sorry. I am sorry.
Oh, no, please do not apologize.
They are completely terrible. They have like one riff and they have applied it to about 60 people in WWE and everybody's got a new theme. It's so they are all so generic and so unremarkable. And in a company where you want to elevate superstars and make them stand out and they have these generic guitar riffs for themes, it's like I'm hearing a theme and I have to like look at the graphic to see who's coming out because I cannot identify any of these people with their new music. It's so generic and not good. Like I don't know what happened to CFO or whoever was making the songs before, but they need to come back and start doing new things for everybody because there's nothing about these themes that stand out. And this is like the second year in a row where I'm watching people come out and it's like, okay, who's coming out because I cannot immediately identify their theme song. Where it's like, if this were the 90s, the 80s, the 2000s, even the 2010s, I can identify most people's music. I mean, during the glory period of NXT, where CFOs was putting out all these theme songs and they were all great, like Shinsuke Nakamura and Bobby Roode, and all these people. Like you can say what you want about the music, but at least it was memorable and at least it was catchy. And I cannot tell you one Def Rebel song that is either of those.
Yeah.
They're awful.
Yeah,
They're
and here's
awful and they're generic.
with CFOs, one of the criticisms that there was, and it's a fair criticism, is that their songs typically kind of had a specific structure where you had like the
Yeah.
stinger, the opening, like whatever, and then it would go into whatever the riff was, and then after anywhere between like 20 to 30 seconds, it would immediately kind of loop back to the start again.
Yeah.
And like in some ways, I can kind of understand why that would be the case because the way that WWE production and their entrances work, you want, if you have a lot of run-ins or you have a lot of like a short period of time for like the actual music to appear, so you're going to want to have the stinger, like Austin's glass break is like one of the most iconic stingers ever. You hear that glass break, everyone loses their shit.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, a lot of the CFO's themes kind of were similar in that way, whether it be like Bobby Roode's theme, or um, the Shinsuke's theme didn't really have the
Yeah.
stinger, but obviously had that kind of iconic piece of music. And I think it's a fair legitimate criticism to say that the music wasn't really kind of complex or anything. But
No.
hey,
It was catchy.
if I had told you to hum me, Kevin Owens' theme or Prince Devitt's original theme, Shinsuke
Oh yeah.
Nakamura, Bobby Roode, Andrade, the list goes on, DIY.
He's another one with a crappy new theme. I
Yeah.
had no idea who it was until he came out.
Oh, no, DIY's new theme is,
Oh
I
god.
don't think there is a more ill-fitting theme for any
Yeah.
wrestler I've ever heard in my life.
We
Like,
are, we are.
because here's the thing, right, as well. Theme music can play a significant role in terms of
Yes.
like the pop that you get when you come out, you know?
Yes,
And
people love
obviously,
hearing theme songs, especially nostalgia. Like, you know who does a really good job of that? Pro Wrestling Noah.
oh yeah,
Because
yeah,
when they had the Sting entrance, they actually had '90s Sting.
yeah,
His theme song from the early '90s before he came out, and it's like, oh crap.
yeah.
I guess he
And
came out to that song in Japan, and
and
they do a really good job.
the most frustrating thing about this, especially when you're kind of comparing between AEW and WWE, is like there's no reason that we should be in this position we're in because WWE
Yes,
again have just signed a 5 billion deal, whatever the case may be, and it wasn't exactly like they were strapped for cash anyway. I'm not saying that
yes,
all of their wrestlers had to use copyright music, all right? No, I'm not saying that, but you can put a little bit more effort in terms of having a variety of different production outfits that you want to use. And I don't know if it's just like a licensing thing. I think I remember with CFOs and a lot of the reason
I
that
think they blew it. I think they broke up.
yeah,
I think
well,
that
I think it's that,
yeah,
but also I think some of the there was licensing issues, and that's why a lot of the wrestlers that previously had a CFO's theme don't anymore.
yeah. No,
Um, but I watched like a bunch of Royal Rumbles in the lead up to this one, and it definitely goes without saying. Obviously, Jim Johnston will never be duplicated or replicated. But again, even that kind of mid 2010s era of CFOs, just and I'll be the first to admit, I'm not watching every WWE program. I'm not watching on a regular basis, but I know most of the main core roster. But I'll hear like the American Alpha theme, and then I'll hear about 10 of the fucking women's wrestlers themes, and it's like these all actually genuinely sound the same, and
yeah.
that is a problem.
Even when Johnny Gargano came back and he had like a cover of his Death Rebel theme, that was still way worse than the original.
Ah, don't. It's
Like
it's
they
it's so
like they sucked
depressing.
all the soul out of it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah.
weird.
And like I know there's the whole tribalism thing between WWE and AEW, but man, you cannot look me in the face and tell me that you think that WWE themes, you might have a couple here and there that you prefer, that's fine. But on the whole, the quality of AEW themes is a
It,
rung above.
they are so much better.
Yeah.
Mikey Ruckus, I think, is the one who's behind most of them, and he does a really good job.
Yeah.
Like a tremendous job for a lot of these. Like Samoa Joe's theme is awesome. Sting's theme is awesome. A lot of great themes over there.
And all of this far more interesting than the actual rumbles
Yeah,
themselves.
I mean, there's nothing to talk about. I mean, Cody won, uh, Bailey won, and Damage Control turned on her, so it's Bailey and Io at WrestleMania. Cody, I guess we're going to figure out in a few hours at the WrestleMania press conference. I don't. I guess they want you to think that he's going to challenge Seth, and maybe that's the match. I don't know, but
I mean,
we'll know for sure in a few hours.
here's the thing with all of that, and it's fair to say a lot has been said over the last week
Yeah,
or so, which I'm sure was by design. Um, hey, obviously some things have gotten thrown up in the air. Punk got injured
yeah,
during the Rumble. That
he's
obviously
out.
threw a wrench into their plans. So look, you got to kind of adjust things around. Fair enough. It's wrestling that happens.
Yeah,
The 12 different theories that exist for why we're in the current position we are right now in regards to Cody's decision to give the match at WrestleMania to The Rock. We can look at it from a number of angles. The cynical, it's a ploy by TKO to pull heat and distract from the Vince stuff.
I don't think that's it. I think they negotiated with The Rock, and he decided finally this year was going to be the year, and so that threw a wrench in plans. And I guess this is a move beyond Triple H's level.
Yeah.
So I guess he has to figure a way to book things to where everybody's happy, and it's hard because now you have The Rock who's finally decided to do it this year, and you didn't get that confirmed until like maybe a few weeks ago. So now you have to book everything around The Rock's decision, and that's going to be hard,
But
especially
this
when you
is
have a story that's been built over the last year.
But this is
2
the thing
years.
that I don't understand, because while I think doing Cody and Seth would be a really fucking stupid idea, I
Yeah.
can at least understand from the prospect of, all right, Punk is injured. What's the next kind of biggest match we can do? Sure, fine, Seth and Cody. But and as you mentioned quite rightly, that this was probably all kind of locked up when Rock originally agreed to become part of the TKO board.
Yeah.
What would have happened if Punk hadn't got injured then? What would have Cody's match at Mania been?
Probably Roman. And I think they would put maybe Drew McIntyre with Seth.
But then but then the Roman Rock match, like that was that was always happening at Mania.
I don't think it was. I think it
You
was.
think you think that was helping going to be held off?
Oh, I think maybe they want it, but if The Rock didn't commit to it, I don't know when they would have done it.
I
Maybe in Saudi Arabia.
I can't imagine they'd be doing that anywhere other than WrestleMania.
Maybe that's it.
Now, obviously, there's still a bunch of ways they can go about this. You could have The Rock and Roman one night, Cody
Yeah,
Roman the other night. Which
that's what I
it's
think it might end up being, but I don't know for sure. Still, there's going to be press conference at in about 2 hours. We're going to find out because it seems like they've been pushing this press conference so hard. I feel like something's going to happen. Guess we'll have to see. And Cody still hasn't committed. And then he tweeted this morning, "I've made
yeah, made
a
my
decision."
decision. Yeah.
So I think we're going to find out soon.
So that's kind of like, well, surely you gave the match to The Rock. Isn't that you making a decision?
I know. You would think that, right? I guess he'll go into detail about what he's thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And then on the other side, as you mentioned, Bailey won the Rumble, which is cool in the aspect that, like, you've now got her, Becky, and Charlotte have all won a Rumble.
They have.
Don't think Sasha Banks is winning one anytime soon.
No.
And like, hey, Bailey and Io Sky, I'm sure it'll be pretty decent. I mean, Bailey,
Yeah.
I think she has lost a step, but she was out with a pretty significant injury, so
Yeah.
that's not surprising. Um, the whole kind of damage control thing, I can't say it does much for me, but at least on the flip side, it does give a presence for the women. I don't really remember the last time you had a stable of that kind of size and talent, which is one thing. Of that kind of level of prominence. But I also think as well that I'm not expecting much for the match, and I certainly don't think that match. I would be surprised if that got any higher than like third or fourth from the top. It's definitely not main eventing one of the nights. I know that much for sure.
No. I don't think it's going to main event this year. I think either women's title match will this year. I think this is the year where it's probably going to be focused on the men's titles.
Yeah, I mean, and you presume that they will do Becky and Rhea, which is
I think so.
probably like the biggest women's match that they can do.
I think that's the biggest match on the Raw brand you can do.
Yeah, but I still maintain, and I've had this issue, and I've mentioned this on prior episodes. I do have this issue that Rhea, who's now been champion, I think for like 300 days, in my mind, hasn't had like one kind of defense of notice, and I'm hoping that at least for the elimination chamber, that they have something fucking lined up for her that is of interest.
Well, it looks like it's going to be her and Naya, which don't
Okay,
know.
never mind them.
Not
Never
feeling
mind.
it.
I'll see you at WrestleMania, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably going to be WrestleMania, which
Boy.
should be good. Should be a great match. I don't
Uh,
know
mm, mm.
because you are right. Rhea Ripley has she really cemented herself this year as far as having a really great presence
Oh, for sure,
and
100%.
standing out as a superstar. I think that's true. But her matches this year, more miss than hit. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of it, really. You mentioned Drew McIntyre there, and I do think that Drew is actually like secretly one of the more interesting aspects of the promotion at the moment. Him and
Yeah.
Gunther actually have been pretty good in terms of doing pretty decent kind of stuff on the mic. But it does also kind of like there is the issue that now with everything, and we didn't mention Brock in the lawsuit, but
Oh yeah.
he's certainly out of
He's
the.
gone.
He's gone. Whether he ever comes back, we'll see, but it certainly doesn't seem like it at the moment. And so that kind of throws a wrench into what Gunther's plans are for Mania, and where because I can still see a scenario where um, Drew kind of gets back into like the world title picture for Mania.
Yeah.
Because I'm still in my mind, still seeing somehow where Cody is up against Roman in some capacity. And I do think that the next kind of best thing, compelling thing they can do with Seth is probably against Drew. And now I don't think
Yeah.
that that's a match that you're going to main event like night one with, especially if you do like Cody Roman and then the Rock and Roman. But I do think that's still probably the next kind of most compelling match that you can do. And I'd probably say that you want to get the belt off of Seth if he does need to go and have surgery. Putting on Drew, I'd say is probably the next best shout.
Yeah. I think that could be the match. If it's not Cody and Seth, I think they've done a good job of establishing that Drew should be next. If it's not Cody, I think that and because Drew McIntyre has been a really compelling character over the last couple of months since his heel turn. I thought he really stood out with CM Punk on the Raw after WrestleMania, and this week as well with he has that new shirt with him standing next to a grave with a CM Punk's WrestleMania dreams or something
That's
like
good stuff.
that. That's a
The best
that's a
troll in
T-shirt.
wrestling since Kenta.
Yeah,
God bless him.
yeah, yeah. Really good trolling. Yeah, he's done a really good job of establishing himself as a top heel, a top trolling heel, and I think that would be a compelling match for WrestleMania if they give it enough time. And they
Yeah.
kind of teased it on Monday, so that definitely seems like a direction they'll go to.
Yeah.
See,
We'll see. We'll leave it there for now. And I think I'll jump us actually over to New Japan Pro Wrestling because I'd say
Wrestle Kingdom
arguably
was last month.
the Wrestle Kingdom was last month.
I
One
forgot.
four
Yeah,
Wrestle Kingdom from
the thing with New Japan is that they had a show on January 4th, and all of this news came out after January 4th, so it's
yeah.
kind of got lost in the shuffle. And really, in my opinion, it wasn't a strong Wrestle Kingdom show. It was good, but after I watched it live and it was over at like 3 in the morning, I'm like, in the future, should I stay up to watch this? And I wasn't sure because a lot of this was a lot, the House of Torture stuff is such a major turnoff to me. I do not like any of it. And it seemed like all over the show and all over the New Japan Dash show the next day, it was like evil up and down the card. They even got involved in the main event post match. And like, last thing I want to see is this group. I hate it. I don't like anything about the House of Torture. All of their matches are the same run in, stupid stuff where it makes the referee look dumb. Um, and I cannot get into any of their matches. I just like tune out and focus on something else because I cannot get into their shtick. And it seems like this year they're going to get a mega push. They added Ren Narita to their group, which again is like he needed something, but this wasn't it. And I just don't like the group. There's nothing about them I like. I don't like most of the wrestlers in that group. The ones that have potential are now doomed to have this shit gimmick. I don't like it. Bad.
There is your Brian Rose shoot promo for the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing with Wrestle Kingdom is that there's such a high bar, a high ceiling
Yes.
for Wrestle Kingdom going back, since like 2011, 2012. Um, that even like a good Wrestle Kingdom feels disappointing in comparison to, the really exceptional Wrestle Kingdoms. And I was looking at my tracker. I've got 5 matches that I gave 4 stars or above. So that, that's a good show. But I
Yeah,
do
it's a good
think,
show.
but certainly, like I don't have any 5-star matches.
No.
There was certainly a couple of matches on the card that were a
I
bit.
think I might have given 5 to Danielson and Okada because they had a match that was significantly better than their match at Forbidden Door.
Well, significantly
I
less
thought that
broken
was
arms in this one, which helps.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it really did help. But even beyond that, though, I thought the work here was better than the work they had in that match before the injury.
Yeah. Yeah. The
There's
Danielson
that.
Okada, I went 4.5 on, and I guess actually with all of this, we haven't even mentioned that Okada gave in his notice to New Japan,
Oh yeah,
and
he's gone.
at some point in, I guess, the next couple of weeks, we'll be finding out whether he's WWE or AEW bound, which, that's a pretty fucking big story as well that has just been swallowed
I
up by
know
everything stateside.
it's been swallowed up. That was a big story. And actually, I'm looking at my star ratings, which I haven't updated since January 4th. But I did give 5 matches 4 more. So
Okay, so we
I
both gave 5 matches.
that is strange. I thought this was a really good show, but is it like was there anything like really incredible that makes this like going to be a standout show in a few months? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I mean, for me, my favorite match on the card, I really enjoyed the triple threat with David Finlay, Will Ospreay, and John Moxley. Um, I, like many other people, I'm kind of done with triple threats. I certainly groaned
Yeah.
when they announced last night that the Revolution title match will be a triple threat.
Yeah, AEW does a lot of those.
But I did think that, and in fairness, they are still kind of novel in New Japan. But I thought the work of all three was just fucking magnificent. Like Osprey and Moxley have such a chemistry between them, and you'd think that kind of throwing Finley in there would throw a wrench into it. But like, look, the man brought his A game, and it was violent, and it was fast, and it never slowed down for a minute. Um, and like the whole United Empire Bullet Club War Dogs thing, which is going to culminate with the 5-on-5 War Games match at the upcoming, I think the New Beginning show. Um, yeah, I thought this was just a kick-ass triple threat, and Moxley's kind of been on fire, like low-key been one of the sort of like performers of the year so far.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then yeah, it was, for me, it was probably kind of the best thing. I think a large part of why this felt like more low key compared to prior years is a lot just to do with the main event and the simple fact that Sonata, as the world champion, has been, I wouldn't say a bust, but certainly, in terms of their world champions going back, I can't even think where. I mean, the second Jay White title reign was terrible, but um that had a myriad of reasons because he was barely ever around. But this is like, your kind of Japanese star as the champion of your company, the face of the company.
Yeah.
It just never worked. It never gelled. And this and Naito, the Naito main event Wrestle Kingdom kind of thing that we were there for, that happened in 2020. This didn't have that same dynamic, that same kind of compelling angle to it. And like, while I'm a massive fan of Naito, I don't care that he's a champion, and I'm more than happy
No.
for him to. Do you know what? For me personally, I when Tanahashi defeated uh when Tanahashi defended the title of Wrestle Kingdom and then lost it to Okada the next month, Okada came straight into the company, won the belt right away, and that kind of put him on the map. For me personally, like, Naito holding the belt for me at this moment doesn't really have much cachet to it. I think, and certainly considering like Okada's now gone,
Yeah.
I think now more than ever, you needed to push someone into like this new beginning match, whether it's
They needed
Umino.
to put him against Uemura or Suji or one of these guys. Who's the other one? Umino, Shoto Umino.
Yep,
You need
one
to
of
put one
them.
of those guys. It's time
Yeah, yep,
because you have this big hole now in terms of who your top guys are, and you need to fill that in with somebody. It's so weird seeing these guys kind of struggle to get higher on the card because I remember when I first started watching New Japan, how everybody was like, "Oh well, why is Okada getting this major push?" And I can't believe he beat Tanahashi to win the title, and things like that. And then it was a situation where Geto wanted to get somebody over quickly, and they got over very quickly. Like they didn't do the pussyfooting around where, oh well, they're not ready yet. Maybe in a few years. Geto usually didn't book like that. When he wanted somebody on top, whether it was Okada or AJ Styles or even Evil, I remember that title win. He pushed them. He didn't, just wait and wait for them to get over.
yeah.
I mean, he put them right at the top, and for whatever reason, you have this new crop of talent who very clearly have the potential to headline, and they're just kind of not yet. It's very strange.
And here's the thing, right? Like, I do think with Umino, there is a little bit still of he kind of has to figure out like who he is. But as a worker, I think he's
Yeah.
tremendous. And his match with Osprey a couple of months ago really solidified. Like, no, that motherfucker can go. We ain't got to worry about
Out
him.
of all those guys, Yoda Shuji is the one who's like, I think he's ready.
I think Uemura and Suji. I think they're a kind of 1A and 1B. Because I think with Uemura, he even more so because Umino in terms of his outfit very much is the kind of Tanahashi, but I think
Yeah.
Uemura just in terms of how he actually physically looks is way more of the kind of Tanahashi clone. Um,
Yeah.
but I think one of those two, and it should be Suji first before anyone else. But
Yeah,
you're
he's the
absolutely
most
right.
ready.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I saw this his match with Uemura, and both of them look good.
yeah.
Uemura really looks like somebody who can be a star. Absolutely. Both have cool nicknames. What one is Gene Blast, and the other I think it's like Heat Storm or
Heat still,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like because the current plan is they're pushing Zack Sabre Jr. For I don't know if he's gonna like win the New Japan Cup again and then do the match or
He
whatever.
should.
But here's the thing, like, and I love Zack Sabre Jr. He's as good of a wrestler as you can get, and even if he does win the belt, which would be pretty cool, that still doesn't serve the kind of purpose of like you wanting to kind of push for the next person. And I think
Yeah.
that depending on how they go, if like Zack wins the belt and then loses it to Uemura or Suji, whoever, I don't think that has anywhere near the same impact as if they beat Naito for it. Because that's a
Yeah.
significant part of Okada winning that belt, is he won it from Tanahashi. Like the man who'd held it, who at that point had the most defenses ever, had held it for about a year, had kind of really kind of brought the the dark days of Inokiism and whatnot of New Japan away from that. And you can argue that that started a couple of years earlier and whatnot, but it was that run of a year with Tanahashi where he cemented himself as the ace, as the greatest of that era. And for Okada just to kind of roll up and then just win like immediately.
Yeah.
So much of
That was
that
a
happened.
shock.
So much of that is because he beat Tanahashi, and I think it has to be
Yeah.
the same thing here. It has to be Naito that one of these people beat. So,
Yeah.
which kind of comes to like, while it would be cool for Zack to hold it, I would then just be wanting to go back to Naito to then give it to someone else, and it's like, do we need to kind of fuck around with that? So I don't know what they're going to do. I think that the 5-on-5 match coming up will be really, really cool. I think that
Yeah.
that whole feud between the War Dogs and United Empire has like a real intensity to it. I'd strongly recommend, even though it's from February, the Gabe Kidd Hanare match from a couple of
I
nights
heard
ago.
that was good.
That was just like 13 minutes of two men just going out and fucking wailing each other. Great. Um, but yeah, no, I thought the Wrestle Kingdom was pretty decent. Certainly not the most memorable, but
Yeah, not like the
you get your
best
money's
Wrestle
worth.
Kingdom ever, but I mean, it was a really good show.
Yeah. Did you see? You said I can't remember if you said at the start of this before, but you've seen at least the two kind of key matches from the Battle in the Valley show.
I did. If
So
I
yeah,
get a
John,
reminder of what those matches were, I would have thoughts on them.
you had John Moxley and Shingo Takagi in a no
Yeah, that was a
disqualification match.
bloodbath.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, not surprising in the sense that hey, John Moxley is in this match, but surprising in the sense of you don't exactly see Shingo Takagi come out in his boots and jeans, ready for a fucking street fight.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it was also kind of weird as well because it's like it's not like there was some sort of blood feud between these two that kind of negated the need for this to be a no disqualification match. But
You don't
fuck
need a
it, it's
blood feud
Moxley,
for
you know.
yeah, you don't need a blood feud for Moxley to just wonton on people and just bleed everywhere immediately.
Yeah, and for the crowd in this was is it San Jose? Where does the Battle in the Valley take
Yeah, I
place?
was in San Jose.
Yeah. But for like, hey, for that crowd, like you know, they get their money's worth with this. And then the main event of Will Ospreay and Carter. I gotta be honest, like these two can have a 4-star match in their sleep, but also because of that, I don't remember a thing about this match. I remember watching it and going, yeah, it's good, but it's also like there's a point where two wrestlers can go against each other and have expectations and standards that are so high that you just kind of like zone out of it and you can't give it like the full credit that it probably deserves because it's like
Yeah.
well of course they're going to have a decent fucking match, but it also kind of felt like it was a match that I've seen these two have before as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was a very very good match, but it's
It
nothing that I
was
will stick with me at the end of the
if you've
year.
seen these if you have seen these two have a really good match, then you're gonna know what this match is. I think that's the best way to describe it. I mean, it was
Sure.
good. Was it memorable? Not really. But I mean, they have a match, and they did that match, and it was a really good match.
Poetic.
There you go.
Yeah. I will now go over to TNA because AEW didn't actually have a major show in January, so there's only a few things to talk about there. The TNA Hard to Kill show, a really interesting show. Certainly now in the hindsight that Scott D'Amore was fired.
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
yesterday.
But it's obviously a very interesting show. A lot of focus on them because this was the first show back under the TNA moniker. I can't remember when they actually officially removed the TNA moniker. Like, I obviously there was that period where they became Impact Wrestling, but it still felt like the
Yeah,
TNA bit was still attached to it. So I don't
I
know the
think
year
it
that
was
they
as
actually.
recently as like it was before they got kicked off a Spike. Maybe towards the end of that.
So somewhere around like between like 2012 and 2014, I want to say. I
Yeah,
don't know where
because
exactly.
there's also a period where they named themselves Global Force
Global
Wrestling
Force
because
Wrestling, yes.
Jeff Jarrett briefly came back and took over.
Yeah,
But
that was a good time.
yeah,
That was great.
there was a few times where their name changed.
The era of Eli Drake and Alberto El Patron. No one needs to remember that.
Yeah, yeah,
Fuck.
no.
But yeah, I thought Hard to Kill was an okay show. The problem that TNA constantly has is that how do they find a name for themselves? How do they find um, a way to make themselves stand out from the competition? And obviously, you can't be WWE because no one can be WWE. And AEW has such a fucking stacked roster that being like the best wrestling promotion is also going to be very, very difficult for TNA.
And even being number two right now is very tough because you see these attendance numbers for AEW and they are struggling too. Even though they
Yeah,
have a packed roster and even though most weeks they have incredible matches, they are still struggling to get people in
for
because
sure.
WWE is so hot.
Yeah.
And for TNA, I think the best this probably was the best move to rely on nostalgia and bring back the TNA name, bring in a couple of new people like Nick Nemeth and I think Dana Brooke. They got some people in, They had, from what I understand, and you can go into detail about the matches, but everything I heard about this show was positive. So seems like the right step. At least there's
Yeah,
some buzz here, unlike in most years where nobody was talking about TNA.
my biggest issue with TNA, and this kind of goes throughout the Scott D'Amore era, is there's a real a heavy emphasis or a heavy reliance on multi-man matches. Whether it's on this show alone, you had the Ultimate X match featuring 5 or 6 women, and I got to be quite honest. Quite a few of these women really shouldn't have been in an Ultimate X match, and like the Ultimate X match is meant to be, in some ways, that's kind of like the Hell in a Cell for WWE. It's that real like special match that you only do once in a blue moon. Obviously, WWE have ruined that with Hell in a Cell, but that should have been the case of Ultimate X. And doing this, and it's not even like a match for the women's championship. It's just for the number one contendership. It kind of dilutes it. And I understand you obviously want to get as many people into a card as possible, but look, sometimes you just got to wait till the next month. That's how it should be. And between this and between like the 4-way tag team match for the titles, it removes it just removes a lot of the kind of excitement that you get with like just putting 2 people or 2 teams against each other. It's rare. Like, anytime that you see um like a fatal 4-way match, it just kind of feels like we're just piling people together, and you don't have enough time for it to really kind of like marinate and get the dynamics of 2 teams or 2 wrestlers against each other. So that was kind of the biggest issue that I had with this card, and have had with a number of cards in the past. But I do think that the triple threat, ironically, it was a multi-man match, but the triple threat for the X division, Chris Sabin, Vikingo, and Kushida, you got 3 very solid hands in there. Not a match you're going to think about at the end of the year, but very much an easy watch. And also, like Moose and Alex Shelley, the main event, I think Shelley had a pretty low key, solid run with the title. And Moose is someone that you can have a very good match with, but you kind of have to work to his strengths. And I think that they did that with this match. And this was probably actually the best match on the show. Um, I think Jordan Grace and Naomi. I think Naomi probably had her best match that I've ever seen her have with Jordan Grace. And I think Grace is like someone that you should definitely build that division around. But, she looks like
What
a
we
star.
didn't mention is that
She
she
was in the
actually made
Royal
an
Rumble,
appearance at the Royal Rumble, and she
and she looked
looked
great.
really great.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So they do have a little bit of momentum. You mentioned Nick Nemeth coming in. That can only help them. But then, hey, now we've just fired Scott D'Amore, and who, from all kind of accounts, was very much loved by that roster.
Yeah.
Very much was a person who brought that company from the fucking like death knell to, hey, they're not the most successful company in North America, but it's a place where people can go there and they can make a living, and they are performing in front of an audience. And this was like one of their bigger audiences that they've done. So
Yeah.
I'm sure more will come out. I haven't read like the specifics on like why he was let go, other than I think like Anthem want to kind of have stronger ties to the TNA.
Yeah,
But
something like that.
and unless there's anything like serious that comes out, that just seems like such a baffling fucking decision to take the guy who's gotten TNA back to this point, and certainly like after a very successful show, and just be like, nah, okay, bye. I'm absolutely flummoxed by this.
It's a strange move. When he took over, when Dixie Carter finally left and left that place in shambles, quite frankly, because they had been kicked off of cable, and I don't even remember what channel they were on when Dixie finally left, like the Pursuit channel or some cable TV network that nobody was watching.
Weren't they on like, what was it, American
something?
Yeah, I don't
even
remember
know the name of it. Like
I'm in England.
on
I
really
don't.
low.
I have a very different way of finding my Impact Wrestling. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably better off doing it that way than where they were at. American American Fishing Network. I don't know. I think it was like on a fishing network or something. Like they were like really close to just
Do you
shutting
know? Do you
down.
know what? While you talk, I'm gonna have to go and find that now because it's gonna annoy me otherwise.
Yes. Yeah, I completely forget. No, I mean Scott D'Amore did a great job of taking what was left of TNA or Impact Wrestling or whatever, and rehabbing it to the point of people are now saying, you know what, Impact isn't that bad. Impact Wrestling is actually kind of good. They bring in great people. They bring in um, great talent from New Japan and elsewhere, and they're having really great matches. And um, the problem with TNA now is that there's just so much other wrestling between WWE and AEW. It's like anybody else is just going to be left to the wayside, and they're experiencing that. New Japan is experiencing that. Nobody's talking about MLW or NWA to any great degree. So yeah, it's a struggle. It's still going to be a struggle.
It
But
was
I think it's
Destination America, by the way.
Destination America. Yeah, I think that was like somewhere in between the Pop Network and Pursuit. So yeah, they were on very low rated cable TV at the bottom, and you know D'Amore got in. Anthem bought them out and put D'Amore in. I think that's how he got in, and he's done a really good job of providing content. One of the things I've heard over the last 24 hours is that he wanted more money for Impact, and Anthem wasn't that interested, which is kind of amazing because they bought an entire network so they could put TNA on a cable network on Access TV. They bought the entire Access TV network so they could put Impact on, but they don't want to spend any more money. I don't know. It would be nice to have like a third wrestling promotion that would bring in people, but I mean, before this, Impact was running like 200 seat buildings. I think maybe they're going for a little more for these future shows, but it's so hard to just get out there and get your name out when you have AEW and WWE running 3 shows on cable TV every week. It's just going to be hard.
And I know, the reason that certain people are saying this, but the people out there that were like, oh, TNA could be like a viable contender to AEW. I'm sorry,
Ow.
these would be the same people back in the day saying that ECW could have been a viable number 2 to WCW. And look, ECW is pretty fucking cool, all right? But come on now.
They were running on fumes, especially once they got on cable. I mean, they were relying a lot on cable money, and once they got canceled from TNN, I mean, it was just like a matter of time. And
Yeah.
it was very much a shoestring budget promotion that Paul Heyman did a very good job of marketing. Like I was watching these ECW hardcore TV shows from '94, and one thing I got immediately was that a lot of what got that promotion over was the music and the videos and the promotion. Like you can recite all of ECW Warfare Volume 2, that commercial. You can recite that all by heart if you watched ECW back in the day. They did a really good job of building their shows and their talent and their matches. And um, but the thing is that by 2000, 2001, I mean, there just wasn't a market for wrestling anymore. The peak had passed, and nobody was interested, and they needed TV revenue to stay afloat, and they couldn't find a network, and they went under. Which is probably pretty much what happened to WCW too. Because once they got canceled from Turner, that was it for them too.
With like TNA, I think the only thing you need to say as a counter argument is, yeah, let's see them announce a show for Wembley Stadium and see if they can get 80,000 people.
They can't. Well, I like the thing with AEW is that when they announce something for the first time, people will will buy that. Like, I did not think they were going to get 80,000 people for Wembley, but they did. I don't think a lot of people expected him to. I don't know if it sold out. I don't think they sold out, but they got around 80,000 people, and I don't think
They
anybody
did
was
all right.
guessing that.
They
Yeah,
did all right.
they did it all right.
Yeah, I
And they
think that the significant issue they have with um their television tapings and whatnot at the moment is like even before Collision came along, Dynamite was averaging anywhere between like 2 to 4,000 people.
yeah.
And now you've brought in another show for a product that, hey, the pay-per-views are doing really well. Like they typically anywhere between like 8 to 10. Like the Revolution show is going to do absolutely fine in terms of its
Oh yeah,
attendance.
with Sting, yeah.
Wembley Stadium's going to do absolutely fine with their attendance. But like your week-to-week tapings, if you're only averaging like 2 to 4,000 people, and now you bring in another show, that's very, very difficult to now be
Yeah,
trying to get that up
I
there. You know?
know that they want to keep this Collision show because it will bring in TV revenue, but it's coming at a cost, and it's
Yeah.
coming at a cost of you're getting very dismal number of people in for these shows. Like, I think the
Hmm.
one this weekend for Collision, I think it's not doing well at all.
Yeah.
I think it's in the same area where the Super Bowl is taking place, and I have not heard good things about those numbers. And also, when you watch these shows, they're very, especially Collision, it's very haphazard. Like, you'll have good matches, but also it's also feels like 2 hours of very long squash matches between a star and a person you know is not going to beat the star. That's like
I
up
think
and
the
down.
last 2 weeks haven't been quite like that. I feel like the last couple of
It's been a little
weeks,
better the last couple of
you know,
weeks. Like, they
certainly
had
like
really
this
good.
week's Collision,
Yeah,
was phenomenal.
with Brian Danielson and Hechicero. I thought that was a
Yeah,
really good match.
I
That
had
was a really
never
good.
seen Hechicero before. Any man that comes out to the ring with a fucking rock on fire,
Yeah, that was a cool. That was a really cool
I
entrance.
can get on board with that.
I feel like I've seen him on the Fantastica Mania tours in the past. He's
Maybe,
been around
maybe.
a while, but yeah, this was his really breakout moment kind of match, at least here in the states. And yeah, the CML stuff is really cool in AEW right now. I'm excited to see where that goes
Definitely.
because now you're getting like bringing in like a bunch of talent that don't really get to appear much elsewhere because of CMLL's like weird um like they don't really want like they'll work with certain people but not with everyone. So you're kind of so now we're kind of like getting these talents that you don't see every week on TV unless you're watching the Mexico City shows. Um, so yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very curious to see if like John Moxley in the Blackpool Combat Club, like seeing him in Arena Mexico,
Yeah,
that's gonna be a fucking trip.
yeah. I mean that's where it's leading to, right?
Yeah,
You would think.
yeah, that'd be very cool. Yeah, I mean, like so AEW as a whole for January, I don't think there was like too much to talk about in terms of kind
No.
of significant matches and whatnot. There's a couple of decent matches. I think the ongoing House of Black and FTR slash Daniel Garcia stuff. That feud has been pretty decent. That's led to some
Yeah.
solid matches. Certainly across like February, the cage match from I think like 2 weeks ago was really good. Like that felt like a proper like old school.
Okay, I have questions about that match because
Okay,
I was watching the Royal Rumble, so I did not watch that show.
all right, okay.
It is so the idea was that it was an elimination match and people would be pinned and then they just leave the rest of their teammates.
No, it
Like
was
they
an
would have
escape.
to leave.
It was an escape the
Okay,
cage.
it was like an escape the cage match.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't kind of get like the logic of that. Like you're leaving the rest of your team so they can get beat up. That's kind
Yeah,
of like a weird thing to me
I understand that.
logically.
I kind of put that the escape the cage rules certainly for like a multi-man style type of match. I
Uh,
do kind of put it into the same wheelhouse as like the Irish whip, where it's just like, look, this is just wrestling, and you kind of have to go with it. But certainly, like if that kind of something that you kind of get stuck up on, I can understand that. But I think that for me, what I liked about it is that now, partially it was a necessity that like the lights were fucking dimmed down for this thing. You know, you almost looked like it was an empty arena to some degree, but that kind of worked because it did kind of give it a very like 80s mid-south like Jim Crockett era sort of vibe to it, in terms of like the way that they shot the cameras coming into the ring, and obviously as well you got people like FTR in there. It made it feel like a very old school style of cage match, and like the way that kind of FTR were behaving and celebrating, and how it all kind of came together. It had a very different vibe to like what you typically see with AEW and like North American wrestling as a whole. So I thought that match kind of came together really, really well. And the six-man tag that they had a couple of weeks back actually, on Collision was super decent. So I think for like Collision at least, they've been kind of holding that show together. I think the one big thing to talk about was Samoa Joe's first defense against Hook, because we kind of saw the most out of Hook in terms of his speaking ability, but also just in terms of like an actual match that wasn't, you know, like a 2-3 minute squash. I guess the Jack Perry matches could probably come into this as well. But, you know, trying to show Hook as like a sympathetic babyface to
They
this
did a
degree
really
we've
good
never
job
really
of
seen
that.
before. And look, there are a few people that are better to put against a smaller style babyface than Samoa Joe, you
Samoa
know?
Joe, yeah.
Uh, I honestly, I'd be fine if for the next 6 months Joe didn't face anyone other than the likes of Hook and Darby Allin, and even, you know, throw
There's
Dante
a
Martin
match.
in there, you know?
There's a match to do in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, like,
I
you
think
know,
we've seen it before. I think yeah, we've seen it
oh yeah,
before, but
but yeah,
like
they fought over the
that's
TNT title. Yep.
that's true. And I remember he took a sick bump. And one of the I forget what he did, but I know
Hey,
there's a
hey,
sick. I remember there was a Samoa Joe match where he did a sick bump, but
Hook
that's like every match.
Hook took a pretty fucking sick bump in this match on the
Yes.
announcers table.
Oh yeah.
But I thought like the overall presentation was fantastic. I love
Yes.
the Batman signal with Hook in the ceiling. I think that's a really cool touch.
Yeah.
But I also think that the announcers, and particularly like Excalibur and Shivani and Taz, I think are a really like solid combination.
I think
Particularly
so.
Excalibur and Taz in general. I've always really liked Taz. I think the biggest problem with Taz has always been finding someone that he could work well against, and also having a
Yeah.
decent enough product for him to kind of play off as well. But like him really kind of drawing the sort of real world emotions and feeling uncomfortable about what his son was going through against Joe. I just think the whole thing, top to bottom, was just like a stellar. And that match was only like 8 minutes, but
Yeah.
man,
It wasn't
sometimes you
like a
only
long
need eight
match,
minutes, you know?
but yeah, I mean they did a good enough job to tell their story. Like that was a match where you got somebody over, even though they were going to lose. You did such a great job of getting them over. And I know there's a lot of people who are crying on Twitter the next day about, oh, he kicked out one with the muscle buster or something like that. And it's like, yeah, he did. So, I mean, I mean, that was like a great kick out. And that was a great, well, not near fall, but a great fall because that got so many people back into the match and they got into what he did after the match. And, you know, it was just a fantastic match. And I know there are a lot of people the next day complaining about it, but you know what? Those are people who are bad faith, people that aren't going to give EW anything ever anyway. So
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but no, this was a really good match, and it really did a great job of getting Hook to like this next level of where he should be, and he should be in the future in longer matches with other people because there is something there. Absolutely, there is, and you need to go with it.
Touche. I can't add anything more to that. I think that is pretty much everything that I've got here, unless you have anything else to bring up before we wrap this baby up.
No, I mean we already have a bunch of stories to talk about for February, like Rossi Ogawa being gone.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And we'll have probably a lot more on Vince McMahon as the weeks go by.
This train
And
never
probably,
stops.
yeah, the more confirmation about what we're going to see at WrestleMania, Elimination Chamber. What next? The next eight. Well, actually, that's in March, so we won't have.
Early March. Well, I mean, I imagine the next time we record, Revolution will
We
probably
will
have
probably
happened.
have
So
saw it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, plenty to keep us going over February. So that is that for now. But as always, before we wrap up, first of all, I'm going to throw over to you, Brian, for your wrestler of the month of 2024 January.
I'll go with a very safe and easy pick, and that would be Bryan Danielson, because every week I see him, he has like an awesome match with somebody, and he had my favorite match of the month with Okada. So I think he's a very easy and safe pick to go with for this month.
All right. I'm going to go with both Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. As mentioned, they've been kind of keeping Collision, and there have been other bits and pieces, but like their feud with House of Black, FTR, their 2023 was a little bit kind of quieter, especially compared to their 2022. But I think they've definitely come out of the blocks running with January, and this kind of partnership with Daniel Garcia. It's certainly helping Garcia. There's this kind of slow, organic rise with him, and the crowd's really getting behind him in a way where it's not just the dance, like him as a wrestler. There's certainly something that they're really kind of clocking onto with him. So, and FTR is much of a part of that in terms of helping him get to that point. So, yeah, Cash Wheeler and Dax Hall would take it for me. What was your match of the month?
Probably Danielson and Okada. I can't think of anything that would be better than that. I thought that was just an excellent match. Way better than their Forbidden Door match. Just better wrestling, working holds, working arms, and yeah, that's my match of the month easily. Even though this was a month with a ton of great wrestling, just not at the Royal Rumble. Mostly at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah. My match of the month, actually, I realized was a match that we didn't even talk about, but the television tapings that happened after Hard to Kill, or the impact after
I
Hard
need
to
to see
Kill.
this match.
Josh Alexander and Will Ospreay.
Dave gave
Who
this like 5.25 stars or something. It sounds incredible.
Dave does what he does, but they had a tremendous match last year. I can't remember exactly where it occurred, but they had a really good match.
I did see that match, and I thought that was a really good match.
And I thought this one was even better. Look, Josh Alexander is like the kind of unsung hero. Like you could almost kind of say like the best kept secret in professional wrestling. Partially that is down to TNA. But man, that guy just goes out there and kills it. And they traded wins between the first match and this one. And I don't know what Josh's 2024 looks like. I don't think he's really going to be in the title picture much, because I imagine they'll probably do at some point, a Nemeth title win. But they just have to make sure they keep giving him matches like this, because he goes and kills it every time. And I'd love to see him. I'd fucking love to see him in the G1. I think he would absolutely kill it in the G1. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out. And finally, your promotion for January 2024.
I would go with AEW, because I think they have done a lot better with their TV in the last month. I know I was very negative on TNA in December.
Quite rightly so.
Because the build to World's End I didn't think was great. On World's End, I think if we're judging on the AEW curve, I think was one of the weaker shows they put out, even though there's a lot of good wrestling on that show. So this month was a lot better, and MJF wasn't here, so you can say maybe it's because of that. I don't know. We'll see what happens when he eventually comes back. But I thought it was just a better booked show for last month. A lot less of the haha and more of what got people into watching AEW in the first place, which was a lot of great wrestling matches. And we've seen that with Actually, I was going to talk about this week's Dynamite. But that is not in January. It's February, so we'll talk about that next month. But no, I mean most of the January Dynamites were really good. So and even some of the Collision stuff. So I think I would go with AEW.
Yeah, I think it's a toss up between AEW, New Japan. Obviously, the way that New Japan like tours and has their show set up, it sometimes can be a bit difficult to accurately portray. But Wrestle Kingdom was great. The New Year's Dash show wasn't particularly memorable. Usually, when you get like a 1-2 of those two, that kind of like automatically solidifies them as number one or number two for the month. But New Year's Dash didn't have much to it. But Battle in the Valley was a solid show. But yeah, I do think that Dynamite has been a significant improvement over December. I think Collision has been a fairly solid show. Sometimes not spectacular, but just at least solid. And yeah, for everything you said there, I do think that AEW would take this as well. So that is that for your first Grap Up of 2024. Brian, as always, thank you very much for being part of this journey with me. As always, if you enjoy what you're hearing, this is part of the Link to the Cast network, so you can listen to Link to the Cast every week on your podcasting platform of choice, where we talk about all the shenanigans in the world of video games and all that good jazz. But we will leave that here for now. If you enjoy this, if you enjoy our ramblings, Brian is on Twitter at BR26. I am at Lithium Project. I'm making a game. Go and check out my game. Go and check out my social medias. It's called Axes. My studio is called Spaceline Studios. I will be shilling and plugging the hell out of it this year. So sorry about that.
As you should. Do we have a release date?
No, I probably... It depends on how this year goes, but I might try and hold it till January or like the first quarter of 2025. Okay. Because like past like September, it gets a bit manic with like, games coming out, like very kind of big tier games. So I might think about holding off till January, but we'll see how the year goes. I got a bunch of events to go to, so I'm going to be very tired by about July. So yeah. But that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week whenever this comes out. Enjoy the rest of your February. How about that? And until then, we'll see you again.